Welcome to Freehandly Made AU Crochet. My name's Nisi, and I am going to do a small tutorial on how to do the Happy Heart Afghan Boggy style. Hopefully I can make this video so it's not too long. We're going to just do a swatch. And I'm doing this the best way I can. I am not a professional. I'm not really a designer. I'm not set up to do tutorials, so hopefully this will get you what you need. Excuse the mess right here. This is the best I have for right now. My craft room is a hot mess, so I'm having to do this in my bedroom. All right, so I've got it zoomed in the best I can. The Happy Heart Afghan Luck of the Draw Boggy style. This is my Happy Heart Afghan that I have redone so that it is Boggy Creek Luck of the Draw friendly. First thing we're going to do is you're going to put a hoop on your loop, like a hoop on your loop, a loop on your hook. This is how I do it. And then I just pull yarn over and pull through, creating a loop. Pull to secure it, not too tight. If you know how to do foundation chains without having to use a chain, please help yourself to do that. This is basically going to be as basic as I can get it. We're going to do a chain. Now, to make sure that your Luck the Draw blanket is wide enough, you need to do anywhere from 105 to 111 chains. It depends if you're going to want to do a border on your blanket or not. I hope 110 chains is enough. So for those of you that don't really want to do a huge border, but if it's a little tad short of 35 inches wide, you can always add a border to make up for that inch or two that you need. You can use whatever border you want on this blanket. You do not have to use my border. So give me one moment. So for this blanket, we're just going to do a swatch, and I'm going to do a very small swatch. This blanket is worked in multiples of 2 plus 1. So you can make this blanket as wide and as long as you want. If you're not doing it for Luck of the Draw, then you don't have all these different things that I'm going to be showing you. So to start, I just want to make just a small swatch. So I'm using 4-weight yarn. You can use whatever weight yarn you want. Just know that your chains, your number of chains, number of stitches are going to change depending on the weight of yarn you use, because different weight of yarns make smaller and or larger projects. You can use a 5-weight yarn for this pattern. Just know you're going to have to make adjustments. Okay, so we're going to just start off with your chain. For the Luck of the Draw, you're going to want to do 111 chains. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to do, let's see, I'm going to do an even number. So I'm going to do 25 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So there's your 25. All right, then you can work either here or you can work in the back loop. That's completely up to you. I like working the back loop. I'm having to pull up my pattern because I changed the pattern a lot and I want to make sure I have this right. You're starting off with your neutral color, okay? So for row 1, we're going to place a half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So this does not include the loop on your hook. Here's your first one right here. Here's your second one right here. If you're going from the front, here's your first one. Here's your second one. I pulled on that too hard. Now my chain is way too small. Give me one moment to fix that. There we go. So I'm going to go, here's your first one. I'm going into the second chain right here. in the back. I like going to the back. It's just my preference, but you can go through here if you want to. But I'm going through the back. There's your first half double crochet. Yarn over. There's my back loop. You can go through the front if you want. Your front would be right here, the top loop right here. See where the V is? This is your bottom loop, this is your top loop, and behind here is your back loop. I'm going through the back loop. And you're going to do half double crochets all the way across. When you get done with that, you should have 110 stitches and or 104, depending on how many chains you decided to go with for your luck of the draw. And I'm going to meet you at the end. All right, so this is what it should look like. And you can just count. Now, there's 2 ways you can count your stitches. You can count the actual stitch right here. Now, this chain 2 right here does not count as a stitch. Just these ones. You can count the top of your loops, or you can count down here. It's whatever your preference is. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 is what I have, because remember, I'm just doing a swatch. You should have a total of either 104 or 110 half double crochet stitches. Now, when I get to the cross stitches and the bean stitches, I will count at the top because I find it confusing to count the actual stitches at that point. And you'll see why when we get there. All right, so this is your row 1. Now we're going to go to row 2. Row 2, you can do this several ways. You can chain 1 and turn your work, or you can turn your work and then chain 1. However you want to do it. Okay. Am I chaining 1 or am I chaining 2? I'm chaining 2. Sorry. You can chain 2. You can chain 2 before you turn your work, or you can chain 2 after you turn your work. Or you can do a standing half double crochet, just like this. And I'm going to show you how to do that again. Okay. So here's your yarn. Here's your yarn in front of your work. Here's your loop, here's your hook. You're going to yarn over. You're going to hold this stitch and this stitch with your finger, okay? And then you're going to maneuver the first stitch here. So here's your 2 loops right here. You're going to just whip this around towards you, pull your hook through, wrap your yarn around your hook, pull through, and I like to hold right down here to keep my stitches from moving. And then I take my hook and I pull through. This is a standing half double crochet. I like doing that because I feel like it makes my work neater. I learned how to do this from Spring the Fiber Enthusiast. I will link her channel at the bottom of this video so you can go check her channel out. She is the one that taught me how to do that. And then you're going to do half double crochets across. Now, if you don't want to do a standing and you want to do your chains, like I said, I'm pulling it out. You can chain 2 here and then turn your work and then do your half double crochet into the first stitch. Oops. Just like that. This counts as a stitch. This is your first stitch. Or from frogging, you can go ahead and turn your work like this, chain 2, and then do your half double. And this is your first stitch right here. This is your first stitch. See your V? First stitch. And then go across. It's up to you how you want to do it, okay? It really doesn't matter to me. The work is still going to be the same. I'm going to go back and do my standing half double because that's what I like to do. If I'm going too fast, just you guys can slow me down. You can slow down the speed on the YouTube. And we are going to go half double crochets all the way across. Sometimes it helps if you put in a stitch marker at the beginning and at the end of your work. I normally do, and I forgot to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker right here. This reminds me that this is my first stitch. The stitch markers will become more important later on, and you'll see why. All right, so you're just going to do half double crochets all the way across your work. Making sure you can see my hook. Pulling it through. You have 3 loops on the hook, and you're going to pull all through all 3. Do it one more time, and then I'll meet you guys at the end. You're going to put it through your stitch. So here's your stitch at the top. You see that? See that V? Maybe I shouldn't have used white. It'll be easier to see on the other color. You're going to put your hook right through both loops, okay? Pull through. You got 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay? One more time. Right here. There's your V. Yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. All right, I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so this is how your work should look for right now. I'm doing this because I'm zoomed in, and I don't want to keep unzooming and then rezooming because I find that makes me dizzy. Okay, so we have one more row of neutral colors. So right now, we just finished row 2 is the back of the blanket. So we just finished row 2, which is the back of the blanket. So the color, the main color that's pulled from the cup, you want that to be the back of the blanket. So in order for that to happen, you're going to need to do one more row of neutral. So we're going to turn our work. You can either chain 2 and turn, or you can turn and chain 2 like this and then do your stitch, or you can do a standing half double crochet, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put yarn over. I'm going to put my hook through my stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through, and that's my first stitch. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in. So I have a stitch marker on each side of my work, just to help me keep track of where my first and last stitches are. All right, so you're going to half double crochet to the end of your work. You should end up with 104 stitches and or 110 stitches, depending on what your plans are for your border of your blanket. Now, this blanket doesn't necessarily have to have a border, but I always liked adding a border to my blankets, so I always try to leave room for a border. But that's up to your personal preference. You don't have to have a border, especially if you're doing the stand-alone stitches and you're not doing any chains when you begin your new row. You definitely won't have to have a border because, as you can see, it's a nice straight stitch right here. So you're not having any of those holes, if that makes sense. It's condensed. It's a dense stitch. So it just depends. I'll meet you at the end and show you what we do next. All right, so we have 1 stitch left, which is where my stitch marker is. This is important. Now, there's different ways that you can do color changes. I'm going to show you how I do my color change. You can go ahead and finish off your last stitch and tie off if you want, and then flip your work and start the new color. People start their color changes that way all the time. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I, however, Don't do mine that way. I learned how to do mine. I can't remember who the creator was. I can't remember who taught me how to do it this way, to be honest. It might have been Spring, the fiber enthusiast, that taught me how to do this. But I'm going to yarn over like I'm doing my last stitch. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through. Now I have 3 stitches on my hook. You see that, right? I'm going to take this yarn, I'm going to put it behind my work, take this finger and hold onto it so I don't lose my stitches. Okay. Now this can be a little tricky. Take some practice. So if you don't want to do it this way, please, you can do color changes. You know, like I said, you can finish the stitch, tie off, and start your new color, which I can show that for you. For those of you that are still new to crochet, you can start your stitch. You can literally cut this thread, pull up your loop, pull your thread through here. I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to tie off though, just so you guys know. And then you're tied off, but pull harder than that because I'm not really doing this per se. I'm just showing you how to do it. I'm going to frog and do it my way. And then I'm just showing you how you can change your color if you're one of those people. You'll put your new color on your hook. There's your loop. There you go. Pull this so you have like a little slip knot. Pull to close it. And then you'll come over here. Pull your hook through that first stitch. Pull through. Chain your 2. And then do your first double crochet. Okay? You can do it that way. There's no reason for you not to do it that way. I don't do mine that way. I will show you how I do mine. I got to undo what I did, so hang on. All right, so I have my 3 hoops on my thing. Now, I'm going to take that loop off. I'm going to wrap this yarn around my hook like this. Okay, then I'm going to put that purple yarn. So I've got the purple yarn and the white yarn, and I'm holding it with my index finger. Then I'm going to wrap my yarn around my fingers for my tension. Then I'm going to hold. You see how I'm holding the stitches with my thumb and my middle finger here? That's to help me maneuver what I need to maneuver so I don't lose the tension in my stitches. I'm just going to pull this through like this. I'm continuing to hold on to my stitches and I'm securing it. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my standalone half double crochet. Oops, sorry. Little hair right there. Must have been on the yarn. And pull through. Here is my first stitch. I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker back in for me to save my spot. All right, now I'm just going to pause here because what we're going to do is, this is now your front side of your work. I'm going to take my yarn. Make sure I don't think I left a big tail here. Make sure you leave a decent amount of yarn so you can weave in. I'm going to clip my white yarn because I don't need it anymore. And then what I like to do just to secure my stitches while I stitch, I don't tie it very tight. I just do a small little knot just to keep it from going anywhere and to keep it secure. There's my knot. Okay. It's just a small little knot just to keep it secure so I don't have to worry about it. So this color is going to be whatever color she pulled out of her cup. Okay. And then you're going to do your half double crochets all the way across till the end. Okay, 3 loops on your hook, pull through. That's what a half double crochet is. Very, very simple. This is one of the first stitches that you learn how to do when you become a crocheter. And I'll meet you to the end. I apologize. This is the back of your work. So this is the front, back, front, back. Okay. We're at our last stitch. I'm going to remove the stitch marker. Do my last stitch. And now we're going to prepare for row 5. Row 5 is your cross stitch row, and you want to be at the front of your work of your blanket, okay? So you, at this point, you can chain 2 and turn your work, or you can turn your work and chain 2 and do your first stitch. It's up to you how you want to do this, okay? Your first stitch is going to be your double crochet into this stitch right here. This is your first stitch right here. Okay, right here's your first stitch. Your chain 2s don't count as a stitch. I am going to do a stack. You can do a stack chain 2, and I'll show you how to do that. Or you can do a standalone double crochet. It just depends on your preference. Like I said, there's several different ways. So I'll show you all 3 ways, okay? You can chain 2 either before you turn your work or after you turn your work. So chain 2, and then you can do your double crochet. So you yarn over, put your hook through that first stitch, yarn over, you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, there's your first double crochet. With your cross stitch rows, you will always start with a double crochet in the first stitch, and you'll end with a double crochet in the last stitch. Okay, so that's the way you can do that. Or if you don't want your chain 2s like that, you can do what you call a stack single. So you kind of put your yarn out of your way, put your hook through that chain, so your yarn is kind of over here. Pull up a loop, 2 loops on your hook, pull through both loops, and then you've got this loop right here, and you got the back loop right here of the front of your single crochet. Front, back. You want to go in the back. Pull through a loop. And this will be your first double crochet. This will count as a stitch. Okay, you can do that. And you can do that at the very end of this stitch too if you want. I like to do a stacked double. So, or not a stacked double. I like to do a standalone double crochet. So here's your yarn, kind of in front of your first stitch. You're just going to wrap it around your hook. Take your index finger and you're going to hold on both pieces of yarn. You're going to put your hook through, pull through. Now at this point, this side of your hand is doing all the work. Do not be afraid to move your work around and manipulate it, okay? Makes it a lot easier. Now I'm going to take my thumb and my middle finger and I'm going to hold right here at the bottom of those stitches to keep that middle stitch, to keep this middle stitch right here secure and not come undone on me. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Oops. It slipped off my hook. Did you guys see that? And there is my double crochet. And I'm going to put my stitch marker right in there. Okay. All right, so there's my there's, you know what? I didn't do that too tight. Let's redo that. I'm going to do a standalone double crochet. Yarn over. I'm going to hold. You see how I'm going to try and give myself some room here so I have the height I want. I'm going to hold my yarn in place, pull it through, using my middle finger and my thumb to hold down my stitches. And I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, And there's my standalone double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and flip that over, and I'm going to put my stitch marker through here to mark my first stitch. All right, now we're going to start our cross stitches. So for the cross stitch, you're going to skip this stitch right here. You're going to skip this one, and you're going to do a double crochet into this one. So yarn over, skip, put your hook through the next stitch. There's your double. Now we need to go back into this one. Now there's two different ways of doing the cross stitch. The only way I'm familiar, I came up with this pattern using my Stitch Dictionary book. I'm not quite certain how you do the other, how the other cross stitch is done. I don't know if you come from the back and pull your yarn through. I don't know. I only know what my Stitch Dictionary told me how to do it, or if there's a way you wrap it. I don't know. So I'm just going to teach you the way that I learned from the book, okay? And that is, I'm going to go in from the front. So I'm going to yarn over, because this is a double crochet. I'm going to go into the front. I'm going to pull my yarn through like this. And I'm pulling up a little bit so I can keep my height good. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And when you move your hook over, it kind of looks like an X. You see that, how it looks like an X? Let's do that again. So we're going to, we did these stitches. We're going to skip this stitch right here. This one we're going to skip, and we're going to go into this one. So we're going to yarn over, skip this one. We're going to go into this one. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Now we're going to go back into the one that we skipped, this one right here. Okay, this is our skipped one right here. We're going to yarn over, go into the skipped stitch, and you can maneuver your work. If you need to turn your work a little bit, whatever you need to do to maneuver to get comfortable, you can do. Don't be scared to move your work around. I had to learn that. All right, so you have 3 hooks, 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. And there's your X. We're going to skip this stitch, and we're going to go into this stitch. Yarn over, go into this stitch, pull through your yarn. You have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to go back into the stitch that we skipped, this stitch right here. See? There's nothing in this one. That's the one we want. Yarn over, put your hook through, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll do this 2 more times with you, and then I'll meet you towards the end. Yarn over, pull yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going back into the skipped stitch, yarn over, go through the front of that skipped stitch, pull your yarn through, pull through 2, pull through 2. One more time, yarn over, skip this stitch, we're going into this stitch, yarn over, pull through your stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to go back into this skipped stitch, yarn over, go through the front of that skipped stitch, pull yarn over, pull your yarn through the back of that skipped stitch. You got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Keep going until you get to the last 3 stitches, and I'll meet you at the end. This is what your work looks like. You see the nice little X's right here. Very cute. Very, very cute. Meet you at the last 3 stitches. All right, we have 3 stitches left. 1, 2, and 3, which is where your stick marker is. So we're going to skip this stitch and we're going to do our last cross stitch. We're going to go into this stitch. So yarn over, go through the front, pull your yarn through. You have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to go back into this stitch, yarn over, put your hook through the front of that stitch, yarn over, pull your yarn through the back. Now you have 3 on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. At this point, you're going to take out your stitch marker and your last stitch, and you're going to yarn over and you're just going to do a double crochet. So you're going to start off with a double crochet and you're going to end with a double crochet. Now, for those of you that want to do the stacked singles on the front and the end of your work for each row, I said stack 2 single crochets. Please forgive me. Because you need the height, you need to do a stack of 3 single crochets, not 2. Do a stack of 3 if you want to do that. And if you're going to do that, do it for the first stitch and do a stack 3 for the last stitch to keep your work even. Okay. All right. So, and as you can see, when you're doing it this way, when you're doing it the way like I'm doing it, where you're doing a standing double or a standing half double crochet, depending on what row you are in, you can see just how straight this edge is, which is why I said, if you don't want to do a border, you don't have to. If you don't want to do a border, you can do probably maybe a chain. You can do maybe a chain of 115 maybe, and have 114 stitches. It's just something you're going to have to play around with. You just want to make sure that your blanket is 35 inches wide at the very least and 40 inches in length at the very least. Okay. So like I said, that's looking very nice, very straight. Now at this point, yes, you want to count your stitches. So your first stitch is over here where your stitch marker is. So we have, and this is when you can see why I don't like counting the stitches down here anymore, because it's too hard for me to count. Well, I guess you could 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. This would be 23, and then your very first stitch would be 24. So you could count that way. But with these special stitches, I like to count at the top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. All right, I have 24 for my swatch, which is what I'm supposed to have. So I haven't messed up anywhere. If you're doing your blanket, you want 104 stitches. Or if you're doing 110, you want 110 stitches. Okay, your stitch count should never change. It should always be one of those two, depending on the size of blanket you want to make. And the size of blanket is going to depend on the type of border you want to do. Okay. All right. So this is the front of your blanket, and you will know the front of your blanket a lot easier now because your X's look like this. This cross section is going to the right. Okay, so this is the front of your blanket. Now, that was row 5. Row 6, we're going to do a row of half double crochets. Just to give our cross stitches some structure before we start the bean stitch. So I'm turning my work and I'm going to do a standing half double crochet. You can chain 2 and do a half double crochet if you want. You can do a stacked 2 single crocheting stacked if you want, as long as you're doing it at the front and at the very last stitch. it just depends on what you want to do. I like to do a standing half double. So I'm going to yarn over my hook. I'm holding onto my yarn to secure it, putting my hook through that first stitch, yarn over, pull my yarn through. Now I'm going to take my thumb and my middle finger and I'm going to just kind of pinch down lightly to just keep it, you know, from falling off my hook. Yarn over and I'm pulling through all 3 loops. There is my stand alone half double. And I'm going to go ahead and do a half double crochet in this stitch. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to put in my stitch marker to mark my first stitch that we just did. And I'm going to do a half double straight across, and you should end up with either 104 stitches or 110 stitches depending on how many chains you did at the beginning. All right, and I will meet you at the end, and I'll show you what we do at the end. So when you get to the very last stitch, just stop and I'll meet you there so I can show you what's next. Okay, so we're at the end, and this is the back side of your work. This is what the back side of your work looks like, just to give you guys a view. We're at our last stitch, so I'm going to take my stitch marker out. And I'm going to do my half double crochet. At this point, yes, count your stitches. You need to count your stitches. Just trust me when I tell you, because man, I messed up this blanket so many times, and even though it's my design, because I didn't count my stitches. Especially when we get to the bean stitch, you'll find out why it's really important to count your stitches once we get to the bean stitch row. But just count really quick. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, I got 24. You should have 104 and or 110, depending on, you know, what you chose to do. Now, we're going to flip over to the front side of our work. Your row of cross stitches and your row of bean stitches are always on the front side of your work. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because the back side, the cross stitch and the bean stitch, the back side of both those stitches do look different. And so you want the front of both of those stitches facing the same side. Otherwise, to me, the blanket just looks weird. I made that mistake when I did a swatch on this blanket. I'm like, oh, I need to make sure that my cross stitch and my bean stitches are both, the front of those stitches are facing the same side. And so I had to frog the swatch, my designer swatch, and start over. So, like I said, I'm not a designer, so this is the first blanket I've ever designed, and I've been learning a lot of lessons. I've been learning a lot. Designers, it's not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you that. It's definitely a challenge. And I have a whole new, I respected designers to begin with, but now I really have a whole new respect for those that design, especially those that design blankets and amigurumi and stuff, because wow. All right, so for the bean stitch, you're always going to have a double crochet in the first stitch, and you should have a double crochet in the last stitch. So you can either do your chain 3 and do your double crochet, or you can do a stacked single crochet of 3 in the first stitch, and that will be your stitch. Or you can do like I'm going to do, and I'm going to do a standing double crochet. There's my 3 loops and my 3 loops. That's a little too, hang on, let me redo that. Sometimes I get my stitch too loose. There we go. That's good. All right, and I'm going to flip my hook over real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my stitch marker to mark this as my first stitch, because that is going to be very important. All right, so there's my double crochet. Now, we are going to skip this stitch right here. This stitch right here. We're going to skip that stitch, and we're going to go into the next stitch. And in the next stitch, we're going to put a double crochet into this stitch. So I'm yarning over. I chose to skip this stitch. I'm going to go into this stitch, pull through my yarn. Now I have 3 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2 more. Now the next step is we're going to make our bean. You're going to yarn over, you're going to put your hook behind your double crochet, yarn over, pull your yarn through. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. You have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to leave these 3 loops on your hook. You're not doing anything with these loops yet, okay? So you're going to yarn over again. You're going to put your hook behind the double crochet, yarn over, pull through. Now you have 5 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do this one more time. Make sure you're keeping your stitches loose. You don't want them, well, you don't want them too loose, but you know, like about like this. And you have some good height, and you don't want them to be too tight, because if you get your loops too tight, you're going to have a hard time pulling your yarn through all the loops, because you're going to end up with 7 loops on your hook. So you're going to yarn over again, go behind your double crochet, yarn over. Now you have, and I kind of get my loops straightened. I'm moving them around my hook and get them all nice and straight and flush onto my hook. Now you have 7 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops. You're going to yarn over, and I hold my stitches down with my thumb and my middle finger, so that I have like this space at the very top, and I pull my yarn through. I just find that it makes it easier if you do it that way. That way your hook doesn't get stuck on the stitches as you're pulling on the loops as you're pulling your yarn through. Now we need to close this stitch. We need to make this a bean. We need to close it. So we're going to close it by doing a single crochet at the very top. So each bean has 2 stitches. You have this stitch and you have this stitch. This is important, and I'm going to tell you why when we get to that point, okay? All right, now this is where we repeat. We're going to skip this stitch, and we're going to start our another bean stitch right here. So we're going to yarn over, skip this stitch, go into this stitch, do your double crochet. There's our double crochet. You're going to yarn over, go behind the double crochet, pull your yarn through. You have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again, go behind the double crochet, pull the yarn around that double crochet into the front. Now you have 5 loops on your hook. One more time, yarn over, go behind your double crochet, pull your yarn to the front of the double crochet. Now you have 7 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I pull up on my hook like that, and I yarn over, and I pull through. Now I'm going to close that bean stitch with a single crochet. All right, I'm going to do this with you one more time, and then I'll pause the video and I'll meet you at the last 3 stitches. Yarn over, skip this stitch, do your double crochet into the next stitch. There's your double crochet. Yarn over. Now we're going to start our bean. Go behind the double crochet, pull your yarn to the front of that double crochet. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, go behind the double crochet, pull your yarn to the front. Now you have 6. Yarn over one more time, go behind the double crochet, pull the yarn to the front of the double crochet. And now you have 7. You can kind of just go back and forth like this just to get your loops nice and neat, one behind the other on your hook. I pull up just a little bit and I yarn over and I pull through all 7 loops, and then I close that bean stitch with a single crochet. And this is what it looks like. Okay. And I know this looks a little short right here, but this actually does pull up once you do your half double crochets at the top. So, all right, I'll meet you to the last 3 stitches of this row. All right, we're at the last 3 stitches, and you can weave these ends in as you go. That's what I would do, just so they don't get in your way. Plus, you won't be overwhelmed with a whole bunch of ends that you have to weave in at the end of this project. I'm not going to, just because this is just a sample swatch, just to do this tutorial. So we're at the last 3. You have your stitch marker right here, and your last stitch kind of gets lost. That's why it's important to put a stitch marker, especially when you get to this point, because of the way that the stitches kind of pull on each other. You kind of lose that last stitch. That's why it's so important to put a stitch marker at the end of your work. All right, so we're going to do our last bean stitch. So we're skipping this stitch. We're going into this stitch. Do your double crochet. 3 hooks on the loop, or 3 hooks on the loop. 3 hooks on the loop, you guys. 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull your yarn through the front. Now you have 5. Yarn over, go behind the double crochet, pull your yarn to the front. Now you have 7. I'm just going to move these kind of back and forth and get them nice and neat. And pulling through all 7, and I'm going to close. And we're going to end, we're going to take our stitch marker out. And we're going to end with a double crochet. There we go. There you go. All right, so now we're going to go to the back of our work. We're going to flip our work over. And we're going to do a row of half double crochets. So at this point, your bean stitch is row 7. Now we're going to do row 8. This is an 8-row repeat. You should have 5 rows of color. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then your half double crochet will make 5. And you should have 3 rows of neutral. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Oops, I just lost my loop. So I'm going to do a stand alone half double crochet. You don't have to do that. You can just do a chain 2 and then do your half double crochet in the same stitch. That is fine. Okay, so to do your half double crochets, you just need to make sure you get the right number of stitches to go across. You can do this several different ways. It really doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get your stitch count right. I'm going to show you how I do it, but you do it the way that you feel fits your needs. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I have 2 stitches here that I already have accounted for. So I need 22 more to go across. So I'm going to do, I already have this one here. So I'm not going to do one in the space right here because I already did one here. So, and I like to do mine in the top of the bean stitch, which is the bigger loops. See these bigger loops? And then I like going in between the space. So I need 22 more. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then 22. So, your best bet is to lay your work out on a table And you can use stitch markers if you need to mark where you're going to place your stitches. And I know that sounds complicated, or you can just eyeball it like I did and put your stitches in. So I've already did my first stitch over here. And the reason why I wanted to do it in that first loop and not the space is I want my edge right here to be as straight and solid as I can possibly get it. You don't have to do your first half double crochet in that very first stitch. If you wanted to, you could put it in this space instead. I just didn't like the way it looked for my personal preference, so this is why I chose to do it this way. So we have our first one. I'm not doing it in the space. I'm going right on top of this bean. So yarn over, I'm putting it through my stitch of the bean, the very top of the bean, pull through, and then pull through all three. Now I'm going to where the space is, and I'm putting it in the space. I'm not putting it through the loops, but through the space. I found doing it through the space gives the blanket more structure. Now we're on the back side of the blanket. There's the space. Putting it through the space, pull through. Here's the top of the bean. Yarn over, pull it through the stitch of the bean. Pull your yarn through, yarn over. Same thing, through the space, yarn over, put it on top of the bean. So here's your beans and here's your half double crochets. I will meet you at the last few 2 to 3 stitches at the end, and I'll show you what to do next, because this is going to be the end of our repeat, and I'm going to show you how I change my yarn again one more time, so you'll know what to do for your neutral color. But this is the last row. This is row 8, and then you start the new repeat. So the neutral color, when you change colors, is the start of your new 8-row repeat. All right, now we're towards the end. We have the stitch on top of our bean, and then we have our space, and then we have our last stitch. So before I go any further, we're going to count. So we have 1, which you can barely see how small that is. It's hard to see. So that's why I have to count on the top of the stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. We need 24. This makes 22. Going through the space, 23. I'm going to move my stitch marker, and I'm going into here, and 24. And that's it. And I shouldn't have done that because we got to change colors. So when I'm waiting for luck of the draw, what I do is I go ahead and I start my new repeat rows with my neutral. So by the time that Mama Swift pulls that new color, I'm ready for the new color. So I'm going to pull this out because I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to wrap my hook around. I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to leave 3 hook loops on my hook. I'm going to hold that purple yarn with my index finger behind it. I'm going to pull my neutral color yarn. Also hold that behind my work. Wrap my yarn around my fingers for my tension. I'm going to pull that white yarn through. I'm going to go ahead and turn my work. I'm going to do a standing single crochet just to secure my yarn. And then I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to put my hook through that first stitch, bring my hook through, and do my first half double crochet. Now, we're at the front of our work, and how you can tell is, I believe we're at the front, yes. You can tell by the way your bean stitches look. You have your 3. You see how you have, let me show you. I'm going to pull this up so you can see. You see you have these 3 loops right here. 1, 2, 3. Those face the front, and then here's your X from the top to the right where your skip stitch is, and then your first stitch is behind. That's how you can tell you're on the front. This is how your back looks. You see, you don't have those 3 stitches in the back. You have like all 7, and they're not exactly, you know, I mean, they're neat, but they just look different. And then you've got the back side of your X. So that's how you know your front from your back. Okay, this is your front. This is your back. And then you're just going to do your 3 rows of neutral all the way across. I'll go ahead and do this first row of repeat 2 with you guys. So on your neutral colors, your last row of neutral should always end up on the front side of your blanket. And your first row of the color that gets pulled from the cup, your first row should always be on the back side of your blanket. And I do have front and back row listed on the pattern to help those of you that need it. Until you get used to doing the repeat, the 8-row repeat. But once you get used to it, you won't need those kind of notes. You'll know by the way it looks. Now, this pattern's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Because I've never really designed a blanket before, and I do see, you know, that flaw with the bean stitch that I don't know really how to fix without not, the only way I know how to fix it is to not skip a stitch. And I may try to see how that looks, but I just like the way that looks. I like that skip stitch being in there. What size hook you should use. I forgot to even mention that. I'm using a 6mm with a 4-weight yarn. My suggestion is use the hook that you're used to using with the 4-weight yarn. If you're used to using a 6mm, use a 6mm. If you're used to using a 7mm, have at it. It really depends on how flowy you want this blanket. And it depends on what you're used to. Now, so you can see how straight these edges are. That's why if you do it the way I do it and you do the stand alone half double and the stand alone double crochet, you literally do not need a border for this blanket if you do not want one. It's not a requirement for sure. You can keep this blanket just the way it is. Or if you just want to do one round of single crochet just to polish it up, you can, and you're good. You don't have to do an elaborate border on this blanket if you don't want to. So I'm just going to finish the last 2 stitches with you guys. And, or the last 2 rows. I said the last 2 rows. The last 2 rows of the repeat. So I can take a picture of this. And, we'll be done with the tutorial. So this is the setup. This is what you do to set up for the second week. So this is the first week, and we're starting on the setup for the second week. And you don't have to. You can stop. You don't have to set up the neutral border. If you don't want to, you can wait until that next color is pulled. But with my work schedule, I just feel like this is easier for me to go ahead and set up the next week right after I get done with the first week color. It just makes it easier for me. Oops, I forgot to put in my stitch marker, which actually really doesn't matter because I know where I'm at. Sorry, you guys. I did not mean to do that. I've got the camera kind of sitting, the tripod sitting in my lap right now. I think this is a fun pattern. It's not a perfect pattern, but it's fun and it works up quick. And it's got texture, and I'm a texture girl. I love texture in my blankets. I just do. Take my stitch marker out. And I love the bean stitch. I can go ahead and cut this yarn now. I try to keep my ends kind of even. And I'm going to go ahead and tie this in a knot. Keep that secure so it doesn't come out. So you will have ends on each side of the blanket as you work it. So definitely my suggestion would be to weave in the ends as you go, for sure. I'm doing my standalone half double. This is now we're on the front side. This is the third row of the neutral. And we're on the front side, which is what you want. So when you start the new color, you'll be on the back side of your blanket because you want your cross stitch to be on the front side of your blanket. And I do. I move my work. I let the hook do most of my work, but I am not shy of scrunching my work together and holding it however I need to hold it to feel comfortable while I crochet. It eases pressure off of my hands. And as you can see, I move my hands a lot, which is why I don't do tutorials, because I know I'm making some of y'all dizzy. I am so sorry. I know I'm making some of y'all dizzy. I move my hands a lot when I crochet. I definitely move my hands. I don't move my hands as much when I'm doing Tunisian. I don't know why that is. I guess because I'm doing the front pass and the return pass, and then with the return pass, my hands stay kind of still, more still. All right. And then to secure my work, just to give you guys a tip, very nice. So you can see what I mean by not really needing to do a border if you don't want to. To secure my work, I just pull a really big loop, and then I take my stitch marker and I put the big loop through the stitch marker like this, like that. And then I just put it through any of the stitches. It doesn't matter to me which stitch. And it just helps my yarn from going anywhere. And then I put it in the bag, and that's what I do. All right, that's it for the tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and get this uploaded for you guys. If you guys want to try and do this, it's all for free. You can email me. My email will be at the bottom of this video, and I will email you the pattern. I'm also Jax or Mama Swift can also get you the pattern. I'm not sure if Jax is going to put this pattern on her website or not. I will give her permission to do so if she would like to. I do not have a website. I will not have a website. I literally am doing this 100% for charity. I am not a crochet business. This is 100% for charity. I don't have time to do a website. I just don't. So you can get a hold of me. I will have this pattern for free on my Ko-fi page, and I will try to see if I can upload it on my Ravelry account. Not used to using Ravelry, but I'll see if I can't figure it out. If I can figure it out, then I'll put the link to my Ravelry also in the description of this video. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this pattern. I enjoyed designing it for the most part. For the most part, I had a lot of hiccups, but we got, you know, it is what it is. And then obviously I'm a huge proponent for Boggy Creek. This pattern that I'm doing a tutorial for, the measurements of this pattern is strictly for luck of the draw, Boggy Creek style blankets for Boggy Creek. But you can always change it up if you need to for any charity that you're crocheting for. It's free for all. That is it. I love you guys so much, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Bye, everybody.